Good afternoon to you, Mark Suttoth, HurricaneTrack.com. It is the 29th of September 2021. Happy Wednesday afternoon to you. We have a lot to talk about out there. The tropics are busy. We have Sam still holding on as a major hurricane, now racking up some serious major hurricane days. That's the amount of days that it's been a major hurricane. Makes sense, right? And also those ace points. And eventually here it'll be the single highest ace-producing event of the 2021 season. And it's going to last for several more days. We'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at TD number 20, which is well on its way to becoming Tropical Storm Victor. Maybe in the next hour or so that gets upgraded. We'll see. And then if it does, we'll only have one name left on this year's list of names. And then after that, assuming we get past Wanda, eventually, we'll start using the auxiliary list that was put into place to replace the Greek alphabet, which we used last year. So it's possible that this will be the second year in a row, I say it's likely, that we use up all the names and go into a secondary list. Wow. So what do we got? Well, the X's and O's, literally, and then you got Sam out there, still holding on at 115 knots, probably a little bit more intense now, at least pressure-wise, according to latest recon. I'll show you some interesting stuff about that in a moment. This is the remnants of Peter up here. Don't even worry about it. No big deal. This is 91L. This will eventually fade away, although some of that tropical wave energy could end up somewhere in the vicinity of the islands several days down the road. The energy isn't going to just go away, but it doesn't look like it's going to have a chance to consolidate and become a tropical cyclone. This one has 90L, now Tropical Depression 20, and this is forecast to become a tropical storm. And we can see that reflected here in the interactive map off the HurricaneTrack Insider site. There is Sam, going to be a good safe distance away from Bermuda, and almost certainly as you extrapolate this out, it should go on and pass Newfoundland well to the south and east as well. But I will show you a very interesting tweet from Tomer Berg in a little bit that spells out some of the uncertainty that still resides, that it could be anywhere in this area. You know, there's some possibilities, and I'll show you that. And also just a fine example from Tomer of how he's using the technology today and social media to convey this idea of uncertainty. All right, so the infrared satellite animation from Tropical Tidbits this afternoon. Sam, very well organized, still very healthy outflow, warm sea surface temperatures, you name it, and probably going on with several eyewall replacement cycles. Those are fascinating, and I'll show you a tweet from Philippe about that. And I'm assuming that his name is Papin, but I don't know. We'll get to that. There's TD20, well on its way to becoming Victor. And there's 91L. And again, that energy doesn't just go away. It's going to just keep on moving off here and eventually could bring some moisture, thunderstorm activity, gusty winds, that kind of thing to the Caribbean. We'll take a look at that over the coming days. Also, very important to note that Sam will generate these swells that will keep coming out throughout the next many days. Not going all the way that far inland, that'd be terrible, but you get the idea. And we're going to talk about that more tomorrow and Friday, because people are still going to be going down to the beaches. We got all this warm weather as we head into October. Water temperatures are still warm. This is sending wave energy out there in the form of these swells. Surfers are going to love it. Big thumbs up for them. But again, novice swimmers, people that just aren't used to it, little kids, anybody caught by surprise, whatever, you do me no good if you're not alive. I need living people watching these videos, and it's my job to keep you safe. One of my jobs anyway. So we'll address that issue in the coming days, all right? Wow, look at that visible animation of Sam this afternoon. Very well-defined central dense overcast once again with the eye right in the middle of it. The eye not perfectly clear, some lower clouds there, but it is very, very well organized. A solid major hurricane out over the open ocean. No lightning near the core. A little bit earlier. Most of it's along the periphery, as you can see by the yellow speckles this afternoon. And here's that tweet I was telling you from Philippe. Really interesting research going on. Yes, this is well out over the open ocean, but it's a great opportunity to use this laboratory that nature has provided to study these eyewall replacement cycles, because they are important in the evolution of intensification and weakening, and any opportunity that they can get. People from NOAA and the Weather Reconnaissance Squadron out of Keesler the 53rd there. All of that is very important. This is a great opportunity to do that research. And what are they finding? Well, it's really interesting. If we look at the tweet here, you have this outer eye wall maxima here, and as they fly through, there's the inner eye wall, which is a little bit lower in those flight level winds. And so just fascinating, that we can even watch this. Of course, it comes from Tropical Tidbits, able to just watch this kind of stuff in near real time. Very fascinating to see. Nobody really understands completely why these eye wall replacement cycles happen. Lots of theories, but that the normal eye wall, if I can get my thoughts together, will sit there stable, and then just for no apparent reason, a secondary eye wall or wind maxima will form, and you get these concentric circles. And the outer one will constrict, choking off the inner one. Sometimes you get a moat between the two. The inner one kind of dies away, the outer one constricts in, and the intensification process kind of resumes. It's this up and down cycle that these hurricanes go through. Sometimes they stop doing it and just become annular hurricanes where it looks like a big old truck tire. It's just incredible. So again, really nice that the folks from NOAA, working with the 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron, are able to do this research out there in a hurricane that's not directly impacting land. It's less stressful that way. It is. All right, so here's that tweet from Tomer, that you have these situations where there is this sort of bimodal distribution in the tracks here, especially all these different guidance. It's the SAM Super Ensemble, the ensemble prediction system from the Euro, the GFS-based ensemble forecast system in the UK Met, its ensemble packaging, and you see here is the instantaneous track density, and then the ensemble area, the ellipse in there as well. And then, as he points out here, Tomer does, these two distinct areas, one with sort of this trough of low pressure that captures SAM and might bring it back towards Newfoundland, but more likely is this scenario where it misses the trough and heads on out into the open Atlantic, maybe eventually affecting Greenland, Iceland, maybe the UK. We'll see. That's so far out in time, a lot of different scenarios. But that energy, interestingly enough, down in the tropics now that I just showed you on that satellite animation, could eventually end up in the North Atlantic as a huge storm many days from now. I marvel at it every time, especially when they don't affect land and cause people a lot of grief. And hopefully, as he alludes to in this tweet, that this second scenario over here will generally come to pass and everything will stay far away from Newfoundland. They don't need any of that nonsense, right? Right. All right, TD number 20 sitting out here in the open eastern Atlantic. I mean, there is the southeast coast or southwest coast of Africa. Wow. I mean, Sierra Leone is in here. That's how darn far south this is. I think that the 11 a.m. advisory was something like 8 and some change north latitude by about 24, almost 25 degrees longitude. That's way southeast in the tropical Atlantic if you know your lat long, and you should. That's way on down there, so remarkable. But this is, again, part of this overall pattern of very favorable conditions that were generally seen in these long-range model predictions for big-scale features like upward motion and water temperatures. Much easier to, quote, see these things even as far back as March and April when Ben Knoll and I talked about this. And here it is. Here it is coming to fruition, and we're getting ready to get Victor, maybe even within the next hour. All right, this map is really interesting today. Lots of stuff to tell you about this. I'm going to leave me up as I do this. So what do we got? First, that is the cold wake left over from Larry, still there. This is the cold wake chiseled into the overall anomaly pattern of Sam. That's that cold wake there starting to show up. So let me take my telestration away, and you can see those now. And then, remember, of course you do, we had Ida, we had Mindy in there, we had Nicholas, we had Grace down in the Gulf, in the southwest Gulf, Bay of Campeche area, and that all stirred everything up in the Gulf, and we had some below average temperatures. Not anymore, just a tiny area just south of Louisiana. And I mean, if I squint, there might be one tiny little area in the central Gulf. Everything else in the Gulf is warmed back up to anomalous levels. Again, departures from the long-term average. And speaking of departures, wow, this La Nina look really coming on, and the warming of the Caribbean in here, very, very important as we get into October, because this whole region through here is going to be climatologically favored as we get into the month of October. And that leads me very nicely into this next tweet from Andy Hazelton here, and saying, hey, look, as we go past Sam in the future, a couple signals of note. Right now, this strong convectively coupled Kelvin wave that's aiding this guy, TD20. I'll show you that in a minute on the chart here. That's happening now, so there's a current CCKW. And by the way, just like maybe you have never seen my videos before, you missed the discussion about what a CCKW is. A convectively coupled Kelvin wave is, to me, a temporary, small-scale sort of shot of favorability. It's like a Red Bull to the pattern. More moisture, less shear, more convergence, but it's temporary. It lasts for a few days, and it moves on. And whereas the Madden-Julian oscillation is a larger scale feature, more in the upward motion of the atmosphere at about 40,000 feet than anything else. Yes, more moisture in the bottom layers, etc., but the convectively coupled Kelvin wave is a temporary shot there, like I said, like a Red Bull to the pattern. And you can see that really nicely on this diagram. There's the convectively coupled Kelvin wave with lots of upward motion. This is the current time frame. This is where this is located. So if you could just kind of transpose this down here geographically, that matches up perfect with that. That is happening, jumped ahead, right there. And on this particular Hofmoeller diagram, but geographically it's happening there on our earthly maps. You understand? But then going forward, and this is what Andy's talking about, going forward we enter a period of sinking and generally negative conditions. Then the entire Atlantic basin, starting with the western parts moving to the east, after about the 1st of October here, all of this region becomes favorable. There's the standing wave of favorability, all this upward motion, that's what all this green is, all over this area, the Indian Ocean, parts of Africa, lots of rising air there, and then sinking motion is generally favored over the Pacific here, helping to foster all those Niño regions. You see how it all adds up there? I'm hoping that makes sense to you. The top is the present, the bottom of the chart is the future, and then you see the strip there along the tropical regions, geographically where you would transpose these areas of rising air and sinking air onto, and then you can understand where we might be headed. Again, this is the forecast from the ensemble prediction system, the control version of it from weathermodels.com. And as Andy alludes to, not only does that show it, but the GEFS, the GFS version of the Euro Ensemble Prediction System, the Ensemble Forecast System here, so much to keep up with. Generally agrees with it. It's got a different look to it. It's kind of a weird rendering. But there's the CCKW, favorable now, that's giving us TD20. And here is the suppressed phase that's eventually coming. And then we get into this very enhanced phase as we get into October. That's about mid-October there. All the rising motion currently over where we see it. Yep, they generally agree with each other. Things are going to be busy. And we can see that represented nicely in the modeling here. This is the GEFS. The mean, the average here, mean sea level pressure. The ensemble member pressure centers, lower are in red. The higher areas are in blue. Let's move this out 2 weeks just to show you my illustration here. Watch what happens. These different pressure centers. Big clue. Watch over here especially as the pressure is lower. All those members of the GFS Ensemble Forecast System, what is it showing? Lots and lots of members in there lowering the pressures down in the Caribbean with a general, just a little bit of blues in here. You certainly didn't get a bunch of yellows and reds. An increase in pressure over the northern hemisphere, way up in Canada, southeast Canada, North America, whatever. Lowering of pressures down below, lower latitudes. It is October at this point. Everything should line up, and we better be ready because we could be looking at 2 or 3 named storms, maybe a couple of big hurricanes coming out of there, maybe more. We don't know yet. Nothing really showing up to hang our hats on in the operational guidance just yet, but that's still so far out in time. I mean, look, I'm literally showing you, when do I usually do this? 384 hours. I usually don't do that, but that's the pattern we evolve into. Once you get Sam, you can see Sam right there. We're going to wrap this up in a moment. Hang on, bear with me. And there's what will be eventually Victor. Those clear the pattern. We get into a more suppressed phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation, or the suppressed part of the CCKW, whatever. Then, boom, magic hits. We get the lowering of pressures over here as we get into October. All right, so be ready. All right, don't forget, I hadn't talked about this directly lately, but Patreon has really grown in the last couple of years, and I'm getting ready to do something on Patreon that I think is incredible, and I hope people are very excited about. This is the first I'm mentioning it on this. I post the videos that I do on Patreon first, and then I make them public. So this is the first that anybody's going to hear about this. I call it the Michael Project. We're coming up on the 3-year anniversary of Hurricane Michael. Without a doubt, my singular, most incredible and impactful event that I've ever documented, with these unmanned cameras and just everything about it. One heck of a story. Category 5 hurricane at point blank range. Well, the Michael Project is a very interesting, several hours long, I guess you could call it a movie, that is going to be the raw video of the last about 30 minutes of our live stream that we had on YouTube from our vehicle back then, which is much improved now, thanks to Patreon and a lot of other factors. And then the moment that I turned on the GoPro box, which you can see hiding behind me here, this is not the exact one, but this is what they look like right here. The moment that I turned this on, we have like 12 of these now. We had only 2 or 3 back then. But the moment I turned that on, the movie, if you will, whatever you want to call this exposition, we switched from the YouTube shot to the GoPro. And it's just raw. No editing, no transitions, no skipping ahead. And it's just hours and hours of the exact raw footage, digitally remastered. In other words, I've taken it into Adobe Premiere and I've enhanced it so we can make it the best quality possible, so that we can see things better through that whiteout that we get when the eyewall of Michael moves in. Just the colors bounce better, they pop better, whatever. The contrast comes through better. So it's digitally enhanced. You see that many times. Some movie 30 years ago, they re-release it and they say it's been digitally remastered. Well, I've been working on this for quite some time, and it's almost ready. But here's the caveat. I'm making this available only on Patreon as my show of a thank you for their support, because really, from 2018 on, that pivotal moment of Michael, and that was the year that I really started pumping more energy and effort into promoting Patreon and how I thought it could really help this project that we tied into HurricaneTrack Insider. It's really grown since then. So I feel like this is your reward, so to speak. I want to be able to show you what we've done in this 3 years, starting with that benchmark moment, quite literally, back in 2018. So the Michael Project, among many other projects that we're doing on Patreon, the Hurricane Highway series, I'm still working on that. Episode's coming up. The podcast series that's exclusive to Patreon, it's called Stories from the Hurricane Highway, a literal look back at my career over the years and just the interaction and everything. A great platform. It's grown a lot. I want to continue to grow it. My goal is to get to Patreon, the Patreon numbers, to about 3,000 annual members. And then when we do that, I mean, look at what we've done to now. We get to that goal, and we are talking about changing the way we view the weather. We talk about the weather. I mean, the ideas I got up here with that kind of support, I'm telling you. But we got to get there, so I wanted to pitch it again. Yes, there are some people that say, stop begging for money, to which I say, keep enjoying watching everything for free on YouTube. I appreciate your support there. You can watch the log ride from the other side of the fence. Not a problem at all. To the rest of you that are truly able to support, look, I get it. Some people are not in the position to do it. That's one thing. But when people start griping and saying that I'm, begging for money, well, again, just keep watching stuff for free. Doesn't hurt my feelings at all, because you know what? That word crowd in the crowd-funded science part, we're getting it done. And we have done some remarkable things. And so that's how you get involved. Patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. And a big thank you to everybody that's been a part of it, really since it started taking off in 2018. And get ready. I'm about to unleash this, whatever you want to call it, like my version of the Zack Snyder Justice League. You know what I mean? Like, that was 4 hours? I think this thing's going to end up being like 6 or 7 hours of just raw, unedited video. I can't wait to show it to you guys on Patreon. So, come on, join in, become a part of it, and stick around year round and watch where this goes. All right, that's enough for me. I'm going to post this and get on with my afternoon. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. As always, thanks for tuning in to me. I do appreciate it. I am Mark Sutter with HurricaneTrack.com. We'll talk again tomorrow.